Most people think discipline is about forcing yourself to suffer. It isn't. The human brain does not chase difficulty. It chases meaning attached to difficulty. And the ancient Greeks understood this better than most modern productivity systems ever will. Because in Greek philosophy, hardship was never treated like punishment. It was treated like identity training, a way to become someone your nervous system could respect. And once your brain associates effort with identity instead of pain, something strange happens. You stop needing motivation. You start craving resistance. Not because hard things become easy, but because your brain begins interpreting challenge as proof of growth instead of proof of danger. And that changes everything, because your brain is constantly asking one question beneath awareness. Does this action increase my status or threaten my survival? Most people unknowingly train their nervous system to interpret hard things as threats. Studying feels threatening. Exercise feels threatening. Deep work feels threatening. Silence feels threatening. Not physically, neurologically, because every difficult task creates friction between your current self and your future self. And the brain hates uncertainty, so it tries to pull you back toward familiarity. Even if familiarity is destroying your potential, that's why you procrastinate on things you actually care about. Your brain isn't lazy, it's protective. But the Greeks had a method for overriding this, a psychological framework hidden inside Stoicism, Spartan training, and Aristotelian philosophy. The idea was simple. You do not become strong by avoiding discomfort. You become strong by making discomfort emotionally meaningful. The Greeks called this voluntary hardship, choosing resistance before life forces it onto you. Cold water, physical exhaustion, mental struggle, silence, isolation, study, discipline. Not because suffering itself is valuable, but because the brain adapts to whatever it repeatedly survives. Modern neuroscience calls this stress inoculation. The Greeks called it becoming dangerous, and here's where this becomes powerful. Your brain has something called predictive coding. It constantly predicts how painful something will feel before you do it. That prediction determines your emotional response. If your brain predicts, "This will drain me," you feel resistance. If your brain predicts, "This proves who I am," you feel drive. Same task, different identity. This is why elite athletes can crave brutal training sessions, why monks can crave silence, why high performers sometimes become addicted to pressure. They train their brain to associate discomfort with self-expansion. Most people accidentally do the opposite. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," "This is too much," "I'm not ready," "I need to feel motivated first," your brain updates its internal model. It learns difficulty equals retreat. And once that pattern repeats enough, your nervous system begins avoiding effort automatically. Not consciously, biologically. The Greek method interrupts this pattern using 3 stages. The first stage is controlled suffering. Small acts of chosen discomfort, not extreme, strategic. Because your brain changes through exposure, not intensity. This is why Spartans trained with controlled adversity. Not to become emotionless, but to teach the nervous system that discomfort is survivable. And survivable discomfort slowly becomes stimulating. That's the secret most people miss. Confidence is not built by success. It's built by repeatedly surviving resistance. Every time you voluntarily enter discomfort and remain there calmly, your brain rewrites its prediction. This is safe. And once effort feels safe, discipline stops feeling violent. The second stage is identity attachment. This is where the Greeks were centuries ahead, because they understood something terrifying. Humans will endure almost anything for identity. People wake up at 4 a.m. for identities, destroy themselves for identities, fight wars for identities. Identity bypasses motivation. So instead of saying, "I need to study," the Greek approach becomes, "I am someone who sharpens the mind." Instead of, "I need to work out," it becomes, "I do hard things because weakness feels unnatural to me." That language matters more than people realize, because the brain listens to self-description constantly. Your internal dialogue becomes neurological instruction. If you repeatedly identify as distracted, lazy, inconsistent, overwhelmed, your brain stabilizes around those patterns. Identity is rehearsal, and the nervous system always tries to stay consistent with rehearsed identity. The Greeks understood this deeply. That's why virtue was treated like practice, not personality. You became courageous by practicing courage, disciplined by practicing discipline, wise by practicing wisdom. Repeated action becomes self-concept, and self-concept eventually becomes automatic behavior. The third stage is emotional reframing. This is the most important part. Most people unconsciously interpret difficulty as evidence they should stop. The Greek method teaches the opposite. Difficulty becomes evidence that transformation is happening. Think about this carefully. When your muscles burn during training, your body is adapting. When studying feels mentally exhausting, your brain is rewiring. When the deep work feels uncomfortable, your attention span is expanding. Growth often feels like friction before it feels like progress. But modern life has conditioned people to interpret friction as malfunction. The Greeks interpreted friction as initiation. That mindset changes your entire relationship with effort. Because once discomfort gains meaning, dopamine changes. And this is where neuroscience becomes fascinating. Dopamine is not just the reward chemical, it's the anticipation chemical. Your brain releases dopamine when it predicts something valuable is happening. So if you train yourself to associate challenge with transformation, your brain slowly begins rewarding effort itself, not just outcomes. That's when hard things become addictive. Not instantly, conditionally. And this explains why comfort can become dangerous. The more your brain adapts to instant pleasure, the lower its tolerance for a delayed reward. Short videos, notifications, constant stimulation, easy entertainment, infinite scrolling. These train the nervous system to avoid cognitive strain, which means eventually, stillness feels painful, focus feels painful, effort feels painful. Not because you're weak, because your reward system has been retrained around immediacy. The Greeks would have called this spiritual decay. Modern neuroscience calls it dopaminergic dysregulation. Different language, same warning. A weak attention span creates a weak identity, because the brain eventually becomes addicted to whatever requires the least resistance. And this is why voluntary hardship matters now more than ever. Not to punish yourself, to reclaim your nervous system, to teach your brain that discomfort is not an emergency, that boredom is survivable, that effort is survivable, that silence is survivable, that challenge is survivable. Because once your brain stops fearing hard things, it starts chasing them. And the strangest part, the hard thing usually becomes easier faster than expected. But your old identity keeps predicting pain long after adaptation has already begun. That's why the beginning feels the heaviest. You are fighting prediction, not reality. And eventually, if you stay long enough, your brain updates the model. The difficult thing becomes normal, then enjoyable, then necessary. That's the Greek method. Not forcing discipline through punishment, but transforming effort into identity, until the brain interprets hard things as proof that you are becoming someone greater.